allow those reserves to sit into the system once they see GDP numbers begin to turn upward is just wrong. It's just not correct. It's possible. I grant that that is possible. That's a second derivative somewhere down the line. But I doubt that Bernanke is that foolish. Two, the media is so much more effective at getting, at explaining to the public, and the vigilantes are so much more evident about explaining to the public the nature of this violent injection of reserves into the system and bringing the Federal Reserve to task for having done it, that to think that they won't respond and not bring those reserves back out once the economy begins to turn higher, it's illogical. So, and the answer, the question that was asked, which Jeff didn't answer, was what is in your account? The largest position.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay. I do remember the question. The largest position I've had on, I have two major accounts that are my own accounts. So I will talk about what is in my account. The largest position I've had on for years and continue to hold right now is I have in my retirement funds, which I manage for I and my wife, are long-term Treasury strip government securities and Canadian strip government securities. And let me think, last year that felt pretty damn good. That one didn't hurt. And I'm going to continue to own strip coupon government securities. I'm going to be somewhat less aggressive in buying them this year than I did 5 years ago and 4 years ago and 3 years ago and 2 years ago, for the very simple notion that back when I had 6% 10-year governments, what you got to buy 10 years forward is a pretty nice price. When it's at 1.8% interest rates, gee, you don't get to buy things at quite the same ridiculous discount that we had then, but I still own a large number of government securities. What else do I have? Well, in my I trade every day. I have one big position on right now where I am long of First Solar, and I am long of Family Dollar stores, which is the crappiest retail store in the history of mankind, and I've never been in one of their stores, and I don't want to go in one of their stores, and I have no idea what they have in their stores, but I know it's the most downscale of all the retail stores in the United States. And I know one thing in this world: in an egregious recession, people move from Tiffany's to Nordstrom's, from Nordstrom's to Target, from Target to Kmart, and from Kmart down to Family Dollar stores. That's the end of the chain in retail. And if you take a look at a chart, it's going from the lower left to the upper right. And I try my best. Write this down. Try to buy things that are going in this direction. Okay? Works better that way. Trying to buy things that are going in this direction doesn't work all that well. Try to buy things that are going in that direction. At the same time, I'm short commercial property. I'm short mall owners. Why? Because they're also in the retail business, but they are the guys who are going to get killed in this recession, because small stores everywhere and the Nordstroms and the Targets are walking away from their leases. Oh, and it's interesting, if you look at Simon Properties, it's going from the upper left to the lower right. You want to try to be short of those sorts of things. I'm long a little bit of gold in my account. I hate myself when I'm long of gold. I don't like people who trade gold. I'm not a gold bug. I don't think the world is coming to an end. I don't think you need to own gold and dried food and distilled water and ammunition and head up to the hills. And I find that most gold bugs remind me of a lot like Ted Kaczynski, the mad bomber. They all look alike. So I don't like the gold bugs, but I own a little bit of gold because I understand that the inflationists out there really do think that an untoward, undisciplined, preposterous inflation lies ahead. I don't believe it, but gold has been going that way, and as a good trader, I own it. So to answer your question, I have the I have government securities in size in my account. I have a couple of spread trades on in my account. I'm long a bunch of gold in my account. I'm trying to get long of the grains, but they don't feel all that good in my account. I think that answers the question.
You know, why those strips are going to bite your ass off is not because Bernanke is an incompetent monetary manager. It's not because they're unable to take back this liquidity. That's not what it is about at all. It's real easy to take back that liquidity. It's a lot harder to work down a budget deficit of 11% of GDP, and that's where they are right now. And just to put that in a Canadian context, we all remember when Paul Martin came over and wrestled down the Canadian budget deficit that back then was 5% of GDP. And it was year after year of cutting transfers to the provinces and raising taxes and sacrifice. And that was with a budget deficit half the size in relation to the economy that what they're doing in the U.S. This isn't about the Federal Reserve Board, because every time the Federal Reserve Board has monetized the U.S. deficit, that wasn't the idea. That idea did not originate at the Fed. The Fed executed that idea, but that's not where the idea originated. So the U.S. has two choices, or any country has two choices when you run those kind of deficits. Have 10 years of cuts to Medicaid and Medicare, and have 10 years of tax increases, or find somebody to default on. I'll put my money on the latter.
No, it's just not true. It's just not true. First of all...
Dennis, could you use the words crude oil or natural gas at some point in your response?
In order to grease the answer to the question, then how's that? Do I really have to?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't know. First of all, what is the correlation between rising budget deficits and interest rates? If anybody actually believes that there is a correlation between rising budget deficits and interest rates, what we have learned in the last 30 years is that as budget deficits have gotten larger, interest rates have tended on balance to go down. It is very hard to argue with anything other than that fact. That is absolutely true. Now, you've been told all your life that rising budget deficits give rise to rising interest rates, but for the past 30 years, that simply ain't true. As deficits have gotten larger, interest rates have gone downward. Now, I'm not sure that I want to continue to believe that that's going to happen for the next 150 years, but to think that just because budget deficits are rising, that interest rates must go up, is running contrary to the last 35 years of history. Secondly, the manner in which the United States accounts for its budgets is the most conservative methodology known to man and is so much different than any other country in the world. Case in point, when we build an aircraft carrier, and we build aircraft carriers so that the rest of the world doesn't have to do it, we do it, okay? We are, whether you like it or not, your protector, and it pisses us off that we get taken to task for building weaponry that we protect the rest of the world with. Now, when we build an aircraft carrier, let us say it costs us $50 billion to build an aircraft carrier. When we put it on the budget, do you know how we account for it? We write the bloody thing off instantaneously. We do not see that as an asset. Any other country in the world in their military sees those things as assets. We don't. We don't see Yellowstone Park as an asset. We carry it on our balance sheet for $1. I'll pay $3 right now, okay? So the manner in which we account for our budget deficit is preposterously different than the manner in which you do. We are comparing strange apples to very strange apples. 3, we're the reserve currency of the world. That's a nice thing to be. And as long as we continue to be the reserve currency of the world, we can run budget deficits larger than anybody else can. That's just the harsh reality. Who gets to be the reserve currency of the world? Whether you like it or not, the strongest military power gets to be the reserve currency of the world. When did the UK stop being the reserve currency? After World War II, after its military was destroyed, actually after 1956 when France and the UK decided they were going to try to do something really stupid in Suez and got beaten back, and the world finally began to understand that the UK was no longer the military power that it was, and it ceased being the world's reserve currency. As long as the United States continues to be the reserve currency, we can run larger budget deficits than anybody else can. Will the